Hello, everyone. This is Howard Fox, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series, the podcast that celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Jenna Udenberg is our guest today. Jenna is an inspiring disability advocate and accessibility educator, and she is also the author of the book Within My Spokes, which was published in 2023. Can't wait to learn more about that. And Jenna is in the beautiful area of northern Minnesota, and I'm like, oh my God, I think I would be cold up there. But Jenna, how are you doing today? And welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Howard. It's great. It is. I think we hit a high of like 37 today, and it maybe felt like 18 with the wind. So there's that.
God. Okay. I had a friend of mine who was in the Midwest, and she was all bundled up. And so I can imagine if you had to go outside, you were bundled up. I will share that yesterday was 90 degrees here in Las Vegas, and I'm not ready for that. I am not ready for that at all. But again, I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us on the podcast. And I also want to thank our great friends at Podmatch for helping to facilitate these introductions. I hope it has been as fruitful for you as it has been for me, because I've had some great guests with Podmatch. But first off, if you would, I want to learn about you. If you wouldn't mind, just kind of give us the 30,000 foot view of your story and tell us a little bit. And I'm assuming, have you been up in the North Shore, Two Harbors, all your life? Is that home? And
yeah, so I was born and raised. I just celebrated my 45th birthday. So I was born in 1980, which makes math really easy.
Happy birthday. I know that, but I've got a few years on you, but happy birthday.
Thanks. Yeah, so born and raised, it's pretty rural for people that don't know much about northeastern Minnesota, but we're on beautiful Lake Superior. And it's pretty rugged. So our people are also pretty rugged and hardy and can handle some and have some wherewithal and grit. So at age 7, I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. The story goes, I was in the bathtub getting ready for first grade, and my one knee floated to the surface of the bubbles, and it was about the size of an American softball or a little bit bigger.
Oh, wow.
And my other knee floated up to the surface, and that was like less than the size of an American tennis ball. So, of course, any little 7-year-old girl yells for mommy. And so from there, I went to the local doctor that actually was my labor and delivery doctor. And he said, oh, you probably have water on the knee. And my dad, who had volunteered on the volunteer ambulance for many years, said, my daughter is not an athlete. She does not have water on the knee. So that immediately led to a second opinion here in town, and that was pretty rare for a small rural community back in the 80s to have 2 different doctor offices. Then that led to going to Duluth and getting a third diagnosis. But at that time, the tick-borne disease of deer, or Lyme's disease from deer ticks, was new on the scene. So I had to go to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota to get the final diagnosis of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So yeah, 30,000 foot view, a little scared kid, went through a lot of medical trauma and drama and unknown worlds, was in a wheelchair by age 8, went through some bullying that happened from older high school students when I was in late elementary school, middle school, that kind of stuff. Fell in love with playing the trumpet because the trumpet was a humbling piece of metal, but it also created a pathway for me to be just like everyone else. Had success in that, became a lead trumpet player, was inspired by my middle school band director, who I'd only had officially for a year as a student-teacher relationship. But she really inspired me throughout my years to then become a middle school band director. So I actually got a double bachelor's degree in instrumental music ed and vocal music ed, because I knew that my physical body probably wouldn't allow me to continue my career in playing all the different instruments and doing all the things. And then eventually, after teaching for about a decade, I decided to go back and get my master's. So I did a tech integration specialist certificate in my master's of ed. And so that was really cool. And then COVID happened. So I really put tech integration into practice, being at home for a couple of years teaching from this very same location we're talking today. But then the third year of that, the district came back and said, we're no longer interested in accommodating a work from home order. And
Ah,
so that was a shocker. But also at that time, I was a 2020 Bush Fellow. So in my faith system, I just knew that this is a chapter that's going to close. But I did go through an identity crisis for a little bit because I've been a
mhm,
music teacher for 19 years. And like
right.
that was me. They were one and the same. But then during that process, I was given the title of accessibility educator. And so I've just taken that verbiage and I've been running with it. And as we created Above and Beyond with You, which is my nonprofit that I founded, that has totally rang true because our whole board, in some way, shape, or form, in the last 3 years, have always had a strong connection to the education world. And so we provide unique abilities and services and events because we're all education based and come with so many different lenses and lived experiences to make an impact on the world around us.
Wow. That's and thank you for that 30,000-foot view, and you covered a lot of high points, and I'm thinking to myself, where to go back because I like to I'm a coach, so I listened
Right.
and I circle back. Uh,
Mhm.
just given the the town you live in, what was it like as you were coming to the realization there is this disability, I am in a wheelchair, there's some limitations here, but you're in this community. You obviously love it because you're still there, but how has the accommodation for yourself and perhaps others who are going through their journey, how has that evolved in a community like Two Harbors?
Yeah, that's a great and hard question in one. So I would say number one, it's been the support of my family for sure.
Okay.
Mom and dad were fighters, especially my mom. She was a stay at home mom. So
Hmm.
she thankfully was that career path for her. So when I did get diagnosed, there was that support at home. But yeah, I mean, my family's house was the hub for everything. I
Hmm.
can count on my one hand how many sleepovers I got to do from elementary age all the way through high school.
Right.
I can count on one hand how many pools I had ever been in until the pool lift was invented. So pool parties really stunk. Yeah. And like I said, it kind of in the introduction time, it's a very rugged space. Again, rural Minnesota doesn't get a lot of funding when it comes to redoing streets and putting in curb cuts and making sure that sidewalks are plowed and sidewalks are maintained. So I would say it was rough, and I think that's part of my work as an educator, and now part of my work through Above and Beyond with You is like I want these spaces and places to be better, not only for the disabled person, but for their loved ones and their caregivers in this whole process, and not just physically, but attitudinally.
Hmm.
So I referenced that I dealt with some bullying, and at that time I had an amazing bus driver, and at that time in the late 80s, bus drivers could still put their hands on kids, and that's exactly what he did. Stopped the bus, walked to the back, grabbed the kid by his collar, walked him out to the bus, and he said, "You're walking to school because you do not get to be and do those kinds of things on my bus and talk to younger kids the way that you just did."
Right.
So obviously, those things won't happen today,
Hmm.
but yeah, I was never bullied again by that specific person. I grew up with classmates that were amazing. So one year, I categorized my elementary and middle school years by was that a good medical year or a bad medical year?
Okay.
So when it was a good medical year, I was like the belle of the ball because I'd get up and walk with my crutches or my walker, and then my friends would jump in my chair and go for a spin and just typical kid stuff, right?
Yeah.
In high school, I would let my friends hop on my anti-tip bars that are on the back of my manual wheelchair, and then we go flying down what we call High School Hill. So it's
Uh,
amazing that I didn't get killed many times in some of the shenanigans that we did. We were pretty safe in most things, but you have to have
okay.
adventure. So
Yeah.
and then, like I said, there were teachers that came alongside me. My band teachers were like another set of parents to me, and because we had to be so close and do things, like the school district didn't have two accessible buses. So anytime
Mm.
I was accepted into an honor band, or we went to state contests, or any of those things, the my junior high band director would always offer her car again, something that wouldn't happen in this day and age with
Yeah.
liability and all that. But we'd pack all my stuff up in her car and we'd head off to whatever event we had to go to and then come back. And So it was the great people that made it amazing. And then there were also teachers that were like, why are we doing all this work for one kid? Why are
Right.
we disrupting our schedule? Why are we putting band in a different school? Why are we doing all these things for one kid? And a lot of the stories I've heard later in life as an adult, or when I came back and taught at my alma mater, because my
Mhm.
teaching career started in Duluth for about 5 years, and then I came up back to Two Harbors. But, they felt at that time that they could have some of those conversations. They're like, "Do you remember this person?" or "Do you remember this situation?" And even last night, I got to play tetherball for the first time ever in our first, family adaptive open gym night that we hosted. And
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, I wheeled up to one of my board members who's actually my former adaptive PE teacher, and I'm like, "Why didn't we have tetherball when I was a kid?" And she's like, "Well, the gym teachers that were here when I first started, they weren't really into those lifelong things and whatever." And so fill in the blank of
I c
whatever
I
they were
can
like.
I
But
can imagine. It sounds like even within your community, again, 40 some years have had to pass by, but little by little accommodations are made, and it's just a part of who we are these days. Would that be a good assessment, or are there still big struggles ahead from your perspective?
yeah, and I would say the current word that describes it is I didn't know that I was being tokenized a lot.
Yeah.
So I felt like different organizations would use my story to make a certain place accessible or be
Mhm.
a part of a fundraising drive or
Mhm.
so Jenna can do this or Jenna could do that. And while it worked at the time, there's just stuff that we know better now that we just really shouldn't be doing those things.
Right.
And I'm glad that we have some of that vocabulary and the ability to share our stories now because so often people don't understand that when they do those things, it's like, oh, well, Howard's coming.
Mhm.
So because Howard's coming, we need to make sure we have this, 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 and this. And then
Mhm.
they call you and they go, "Hey, Howard, we're doing this amazing thing just for you. And it's going to be on this day and this time, and you have to be there because we just did all these things for you. Isn't that exciting?" And then you're going, I'm a busy dude and I can't come. And then they're like,
Mhm.
"But we just did all this for you. We spent all this money. We made it." And so it's those kinds of situations. And it's like, no, the heart should be we want anyone who has any of these needs to be able to come. And this is just the right and ethical thing to do. So we're just going to keep
Mhm.
doing that until people come and they hear about it. So I,
Right.
I wish those things were a part of my story, but they're
Right.
not. But it
Okay.
helps me as a community leader go, ding, ding, ding. Don't fall into that default mode of what I was treated like.
Right.
Let's do better.
Right. It's interesting, and I swear I always say at this day and age, don't get any political on this. But when I hear the words DEI, it's like, well, which one of those words did you have an issue with? Because help me understand this. Because anybody in any family could at any time be affected by one of those. And
Right.
then they're going to be at the front of the line saying, "But what about me? What about my child, my spouse, so
Yep.
my partner?" So I'm curious in that this is the Outdoor Adventure Series, and I'm kind of glancing over at your website. I'm curious about the evolution for yourself in your education and your advocacy. How are you helping, or what are some of the activities that you're involved with to not only ensure there's open space available, but that you can get on the beach? And by the way, there's a behind my big frame here is an actual nice little path here. I'll go over there.
Oh,
There is
yeah.
a
Look at
path.
that.
There is a path there. I mean, it's not a. I think they're called Moby mats where they lay them out on the
Mhm.
beach, but and this is not okay. We have a 100-yard path for somebody who has a disability and will have a struggle getting around. But there's a concerted effort to make the open spaces, the trails, like what's behind me, up on the beach paths to go along. But what's going on in your neck of the woods, and how is your work with Above and Beyond with you? How is that helping to kind of open up the conversations and start the conversation, if you may, to make things more accessible and without having that stigma there. It's like we do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right. So first, I would say I would backtrack to say I was a tomboy growing up. Loved
Okay.
being out in the fishing boats, loved being on docks. I'm a water person. Gotta
Ah.
see the water. And I didn't know the world that I was missing out on. So in near the end of my career, I was driving up to Silver Bay, which is about 25 miles north,
Mhm.
and there are beautiful random different beaches.
Mhm.
And there are beautiful cascades of fronts of cliffs and just beautiful Lake Superior doing its thing. And there's always these random paved trails that I would see from time to time, and there's this one bridge. And I always claimed that bridge is mine. I'd never been on it, never really seen it from on it. And I was like, that's my bridge. That's the most
Mhm.
picturesque thing in this 25 miles stretch. And I just, whatever. So when I became a 2020 Bush Fellow, I did some research and I was like, what can I do with my manual chair to get over there? Like, I want to go have an adventure. I miss being outside. What's the deal? And
Mhm.
so I found this company called Rio Mobility, and they
Mhm.
have a Firefly. And so it is a third wheel electric attachment that I
Mhm.
have special little brackets mounted to my manual chair, and
Mhm.
a non-disabled person can help me flip it onto me and I can secure it. And so I have put, I believe it's over 400 miles on it
Okay.
in 4 years. Anywhere from state trails to I think I've been to like 8 state parks now, where before I was like, what's a state park?
Mhm.
I don't know. They weren't a part of my culture, my life. It
Mhm.
wasn't accessible. And then the Gitchigami State Trail is a huge thing, and that's where that my bridge is.
Mhm.
And, partnering with them, their current leader is amazing. Her name is Michelle, and we've just done a lot of work together. And so what's happening with the Gitch is we're trying to get it to go from Two Harbors all the way to the Canadian border.
Mhm.
And as you can imagine, being on the rugged North Shore of Lake Superior, that's a feat. And you've got
Mhm.
lots of people that have private ownership of cabins and homes, and so the Gitchigami Trail Association is a nonprofit that partners with the Minnesota DNR to
Mhm.
create the Gitchigami State Trail System.
Okay.
And so that's been a great space to be in. I also got to do the media day with Split Rock State Park when they got their first track share. And
Mhm.
so that was a great day. I had never seen that state park before. Of course, I had
Mhm.
been to Split Rock Lighthouse, the parts that I can actually get to in my manual wheelchair. But yeah, being right next to the lake, taking that track chair on some very rugged terrain, sitting at a picnic table. I have video and pictures of, like, I never thought I'd get to see a fire pit and a picnic table and all the things that you guys that hike and traverse in the
Mhm.
typical ways. Like,
Yeah.
those are pipe dreams. And I'm excited that current leadership in some of the communities on the shore have now heard of the Moby Mat. I've never physically been on one yet, but my goal
Mhm.
is to do that this summer
Okay.
with a local adaptive recreation place, because I was making some connections during the pandemic of my Bush Fellowship, and it was like, wait, you guys have one in Duluth? Why isn't it out somewhere? Like, let's explore this. Let's have some events. Let's do these things.
Mm.
And so, anyways, there's just great opportunities. So I do a lot of working with state and local agencies. Above and Beyond with You is we're working with some local businesses. We're working with the city on a lot of things. We do site
Mhm.
assessments and space assessments. I was in a MnDOT planning thing for a ginormous thing that's happening with our highway in a couple of years. And then recently I was just appointed to the Parks and Trails Legacy Commission,
Oh,
some kind of
wow.
verbiage like that. I haven't been onboarded yet, so I probably butchered that. But
Okay.
yeah, so just lots of different pockets of like people really seeing accessibility as a need.
Mhm.
And going back to your DEI comment, is like I always struggle because A is never there.
Mhm.
And so we're like, as a community, we're fighting for that because everybody tries to make the assumption that accessibility and disability culture and community are just weaved into one of those other three letters. And it's like, no, because when you make things accessible for us, you're making them accessible for a whole host of other folks. And when you have 24 to 29% of the American population self-identifying as being
Mhm.
disabled,
Mhm.
like, come on, every life in America is touched by disability and beyond,
Sure.
I would say. But
Oh, yeah.
And then that's the hard part too, because we love the Americans with Disability Act, but that's the largest unfunded mandate the United States government has ever put forth.
Mhm.
So you have all these people that want to make things accessible, but as you can imagine, when you're a very tourism-based space up here, it's really hard to put your bottom line into it. And I get it. And it's a part of that education process because disabled people spend billions of dollars a year in tourism. So
Sure.
they're missing a huge population.
If I talk to a destination marketing organization or a chamber of commerce, it's as they like to say, and I love the words heads and beds and cash register singing. And if you're not tapping into an entire uh population of folks that they've got money to spend and
Yep.
but having so when any initiative is underway, how do we ensure not just the DEI, but the ADEI,
Hmm.
and it needs to be a part of the equation. And it's just unfortunate, but then you don't well, I'm getting older, so there's places I'm and things I'm not going to do, but
Right.
but it's good to know that they're available. Those opportunities, experiences are available, and they should be
Hmm.
available for yourself and all the folks that are looking to you as a role model. And hey, if Jenna can do this and her can help do it in her community, we can do it in ours. I love that.
Yeah.
What's been a kind of a reflection you've heard from folks that are learning more about you and your work, your advocacy, your education, the services you provide? What are you hearing from some of the folks like, "Oh, wow, I get to do this," or "My child loves this," or my sibling can now do this." What are some of the feedback you're hearing from folks who are benefiting from your work in advocacy?
Um, I would say so I write for a column for our local newspaper every other week, and I would
Mhm.
say that's the area that I get the most feedback in, and a lot of it is people going, "Wow, I never thought about this,"
Okay.
or "I never saw life in that way," or "I never knew that the library had these assistive devices that I could try before going and buying it," or "I didn't
Mhm.
know that if I called ahead, or if I'm sitting at a gas pump at Quick Trip, legally during certain hours, I can call and request that somebody pumps my gas under the ADA. So it's just that benefit of education and sharing stories and then also, like I said earlier, last night was our first night of a adaptive family gym night that we just started in partnership with our local city. And in that, our families are finding community. And
Mhm.
so when you bring different pockets of groups and communities together, you're making your community stronger because they feel seen and heard and they're in a safe environment to just be them.
Right.
And so I love the family side of it because like last night I got to know an older sister who taught me how to play tetherball. And
Mhm.
then by the end of the night, we lowered the ball and played a very gentle game with her 3-year-old brother,
Mhm.
that was sitting in a wheelchair. So it's just
Mhm.
like, this is the whole reason why we do what we do. And this should have been happening since day one.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword of like, this is amazing. This is super fun. And I wish it could have happened sooner. But here we go. And we're going to make sure that more gets done. And we're going to make sure that these very valuable stories are shared
Mhm.
so we can change. And kind of going back to your topic earlier is that we need to promote that. So
Mhm.
if you're in the industry of hospitality, promote what's accessible. Don't tell me that it's 100% accessible because that doesn't tell me anything.
Right.
Show me the pictures, show me the video, give me things so I determine if it's 100% accessible for me, or I can figure out what equipment I need to bring to be safe and be able to explore and do all the things that I need to do to stay healthy and safe in your space. And that's what I encountered a lot as a kid too, because it was like, well, we built it and you didn't come. And it's like, well, you didn't tell me you built it. So I
Right.
didn't come because I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
So that's one of the other core goals of Above and Beyond with You is like to help local agencies and entities and businesses share the amazing things you're doing and don't apologize for some of the things you can't. Like my favorite state park on the North Shore, I can't really get out on their trails because they're too steep, rugged, not able really ever to be paved.
Hmm.
And so when I'm talking with that park manager, he's always apologetic. And I did a book signing there and a book talk and all the things. And I'm like, please stop apologizing. Like, it's fine that you say, like, I'm sorry that we can't do this or we haven't done this, but it's like, let us come, let us experience your space.
Hmm.
And then if there's things that we can suggest, you're
That's key.
super open to it. So
That
that's the thing.
that's key. But it's interesting. And as before our episode, as I was preparing, I was going back and looking at, okay, who are the guests that I have had on? I've had somebody, a physical neurological disability, had a gentleman, Ian McKay, who's a full quadriplegic because of an accident. I don't know if you've heard, there's Curb Free with Corey Lee. And
Corey.
yeah, and then who's the, let's see, I wrote all this down. Chad Waligura, who is,
Oh,
he's got his upper body, but he can't walk. But
okay.
he's a hunter and a fisherman. So his his
Nice.
his passion is developing the equipment so that somebody with a disability can still go hunting and fishing. Okay, and he may
Awesome.
need help, but he can still do it and enjoy it. And
Right.
all that is involves what you just shared. It's that conversation.
Mm.
Thank you for being apologetic. I appreciate it. You don't have to do it now. Let us
Right.
offer you a suggestion of things you can do. And
Yep.
I love that. How has your writing been transformative for you? Because I think I had read in as I was preparing our notes for today is you're writing your memoir, which that's a big deal. And how what's that process been like for you?
Yeah. So my whole life, people have told me I need to write a book.
Okay.
And usually it came from medical professionals because they're like,
Right.
just your attitude about the horrible things that are happening right now, but you're making lemonade all the time. And I get for some folks in my community and culture don't like that saying because sometimes it can come across as ableist. So I'm just giving a shout out to those folks to
Okay.
acknowledge that. And yet I feel like that's just a part of my personality. That's a part of my faith. That's also a part of just my lived experience. Like, and if
Mhm.
I just keep getting the lemons, it's too heavy and I can't
Right.
keep carrying that kind of load. So I've always been encouraged to write a book. Never had the time because I push myself to extreme limits. I have high expectations for myself. I had high expectations for all of my music students. And so then when I was in my Bush Fellowship and retirement happened, it was like, all right, so there's this thing called writing a book. How
Mhm.
do I do that? What does it look like? I found a self-publishing school and signed up for that and had a great coach that helped me through the process. And being a type A and a very linear kind of person,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, so I have to write this in chronological order, right? And she's like, no, you write the part of your story that you have the energy, the capability, and the connection to your heart and spirit about what you need to write that day.
Mhm.
And I was like, that was probably the most powerful advice I've been given in that whole process. And so it took me about a year to write within my spokes. A lot of times, again, sitting in this very space. I wrote most of it in the winter. So you can
Mhm.
picture just dark, early morning, having your hot cup of coffee, which I'm not a real coffee drinker because I drink the frou-frou stuff for the coffee connoisseurs that are listening.
I don't know how we can even be on this call together because I am a coffee guy.
You're
So,
like,
but
"And click."
okay, we're done.
Yeah. So, and it was just great because some days were really hard. Some days
Mhm.
were like, okay, well, we're just going to write all this, but most of this isn't going to go in the book. This is just a writing exercise of healing and dealing with some of the things.
Mhm.
And then other stuff was great to write. And so the word that I was given before I was writing was tapestry. And
Mhm.
so when you think of a tapestry, the front is very vivid colors and
Mhm.
lots of different strings and different lengths of things and different widths. And some are shiny and glimmery, and some are kind of dull and plain and Sometimes you're even gross looking, right?
Mhm.
And then when you flip the tapestry over, you have just a hot mess of all the
Yes.
threads going in different places and knots and rips and the whole 9 yards. So the subtitle of my book is A Tapestry of Pain, Growth, and Freedom. And that meant a lot to me because it's not just Jenna's story,
Mhm.
but it's my family's story. It's all my friends' story. It's my church family and my chosen family story. It's
Mhm.
even the people that didn't like me. It's my bullies' stories, right? It's
Yeah.
my medical team story. It's any life that's
Mhm.
interacted with my life,
Mhm.
um, coming into full circle. And
Mhm.
so it's super funny with that because I have two good friends that I have permission to use their names in the book. And so
Mhm.
then some locals or friends of theirs are like, Megan, I read your book. Your book is great. That was great. Jamie, I read your book. And both my friends are like, it's not my book. It's Jenna's book. Like, we haven't written a book. What are you talking about? Right. But
Yeah.
that is like the greatest compliment to me because the book did what it was supposed to do.
Good.
It's highlighting the connections and the interdependence that we have in
Mhm.
life versus the stoic Scandinavian that's so rampant up here on the North Shore of like the American independent spirit. And we don't need anyone else and we can do it all. And we're going to go
Mhm.
conquer the West and all those things that are also ingrained in us. So, yeah. And then the writing world, finding an editor, which thankfully I was blessed to have somebody right here in my town that I knew well and went, wait, you
Mhm.
edit? So that was great. Learning lots about the self-publishing world, let alone the other publishing world, let
Oh,
alone
yeah.
promotion and the marketing, and
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been learning a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's literally
So,
how I started this podcast. It was actually I have a business podcast, but our initial the initial guest was solving a problem with a coaching client who wanted to write, and because he wanted to, we published articles on LinkedIn, and it was like, okay, let's create a podcast. And but my initial guests were all authors. So
okay.
if you and I had met back in 2019, you would have been a guest on my podcast. And I've done too many children's books and zombie apocalypse novels, something much more inspiring. But I mean, it's no small feat in the fact that you're able to have the discipline, as you just said, you type A, it's like, I want to be done. And at writing 500 words a day, I mean, it's sometimes that's what some of the consultants say you ought to do. But I mean, it's a great accomplishment to have that book.
Mhm.
And for our listeners again, what is the name of the book?
Within my spokes, a tapestry of pain, growth, and freedom.
Okay, and I think you mentioned too you're going to have a audiobook coming out shortly.
Yeah. Yeah. My goal is it's me reading it, and I have a college friend who's an audio engineer. So we're in the process of taking all those clips and making that accessible. So yeah,
Excellent.
and that was another part of the writing journey too, was researching what is the most accessible font and
Hmm.
size and all the things because I don't want to just be a story that's preaching accessibility.
Hmm.
I want to take it to the next level and make sure I'm doing as much inclusion and modifications and accessibility as I can.
Yeah. Not to, I'm sure you've got a lot on your plate, but not just, well, what the heck, one little idea. This is where podcasting is such a great medium because you can take your passion,
Mhm.
and there's thousands of people around the globe who they have their stories, and you get to share it. So something to think about.
Yeah.
So something to think about. As you kind of look back now in this journey, I mean, it's happy birthday again, way back when,
Right.
1985. So things have changed. We are
Mhm.
more tuned in to the needs of the accessibility, the DEI. As you look back, what's been your biggest aha moment?
Hmm. I would say that it's when I talked earlier that we're interdependent.
Hmm.
We absolutely need each other. And that disability is not a bad word
Okay.
because there's so much negative stigma that's just been ingrained for so long that now when when we finally see things differently, right? Like I'm not wheelchair bound,
Mhm.
but my wheelchair gives me freedom. And also too, like I've always been told that I'm inspiring, but now that I'm in my 40s and I have less of a filter, it's more like, okay, so I inspired you to do what?
Okay.
So what's that action? Or you know what I mean? Like it can't just be, oh, that was great. And I do the same thing to others. So I'm preaching to myself because I'm trying to
There you go.
unlearn some things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's those action steps. What are the things that we're being convicted about and that we need to change in ourselves in order to change the world around us?
Okay. I love that. Thank you for that gift. And what insight would you like to leave with our listeners? Just again, given your journey and again, I love the fact, okay, thank you for sharing. And then what are you going to do about it? Which is an
Right.
insight, but it could be
Yeah.
that, or is there some other insight that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
For me, I would say it's all about asking curious questions. So I, as somebody who's been in a wheelchair for 38 years now, have a pretty good read on people. So if you're feeling insecure in the words you use, or in where to look or not look, or just all the things we do as in human nature, human psychology, like try to work on those things when you're not in those spaces
Okay.
and just try to realize that we're all human and like all of us have needs. So in my world, I'm trying to break down some of the labels I used to use. So like I hate the word handicap and sometimes
Mhm.
it still pops out when I say handicap parking, but I'm not a golf scorer.
Mhm.
I've driven a golf cart, but I've never played golf because it just doesn't float my boat. But if you want to play golf, you still can as a wheelchair user because there
Mhm.
are golf carts that are adapted. And so I would say also, like, in that example, like, whatever you did as a non-disabled person, if you weren't disabled from birth, and even if
Mhm.
you were disabled from birth, you can find a way to do all those things. It might look
Right.
different, it might act different, it might feel different, but you can still achieve that joy and that purpose and that opportunity and experience
Mhm.
if you yourself can get over it and or if your care people and the community around you can also get over it. But yeah, I would just say get over the labels, get over the assumptions,
Mhm.
and just ask curious questions of how are you today? Would
Mhm.
you like me to stay standing or should I go find a chair so it's easier to talk?
Mhm.
There are just so many ways that we can be human,
Right.
provide dignity, restore dignity,
Mhm.
and have those honest conversations. And again, I'm preaching to the choir myself because I've lived in the non-disabled world far longer than I've lived
Mhm.
in disability culture and community because I'm isolated in a rural setting. And so
Right.
I too will feel awkward at times when I'm
Mhm.
with my quote unquote own people. But again, I have to go back to that same thing. Just ask curious questions. And if people don't want to answer the question, that's totally fine.
Mhm.
They're going to see the heart and the honesty and the authenticity of what you want to know. And then I would say the other question is like, is the question you're asking, are you going to be acting upon it? Right.
Right.
Or are you just asking the question because you want to know how they go to the bathroom? Well,
Just
in a
idle
certain
chit chat.
setting that, right, that might be okay. But in other situations, it's like, well, am I going to go, hey, Howard, how do you go to the bathroom? Like, you know what I mean? Like, like flip it on yourself to be like, I don't need to know. That's weird.
I gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah.
Very good. Jenna, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, let's just share where are the best places to go.
Yeah. So aboveandbeyondwithyou.org is our website. And so above and beyond stands for going above the 88 code, that it's
Hmm.
the floor, not the ceiling. And
Hmm.
then it's with you, capital U, not YOU. You won't find us if you spell it that way. But
Okay.
with with you stands for we come alongside you in this process because we want to grow together. And the U stands for Udenberg. Because my little kindergartners could not say Miss Udenberg. So they
Uh,
changed it to Miss You.
got,
Yeah, so that's our website. You can find a link to buy the book on Amazon, or you can just go straight to Amazon or wherever you buy your books. You can also find Above and Beyond with You on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Excellent. Well, we will provide all those backlinks, including the link to the book. Jenna, it's been a pleasure to get to know you. I again thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast. It did a perfect match for the type of work that we do at the Outdoor Adventure Series, and it's an inspiring story. And you are definitely making a difference, and I appreciate you sharing that with our audience. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been great.
All right, listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close, and you and I can have a final chat. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Jenna Udenberg. She is a disability advocate, accessibility educator, author of the book Within My Spokes, and really just an inspiring story and such an important topic, especially today and what's going on in our country. And there's needs all around us, and we cannot just let them fall by the wayside. We have to keep fighting so everybody has access and can enjoy the outdoor spaces and even the spaces outside the front door, the sidewalks, the downtown on the main street. So really just an inspiring story from Jenna and how she has really carved out a new niche beyond her work as a music educator, and really just now she's an accomplished author and advocate, and she's out there making a difference. Now, do go out to her website, above and beyond with you.org. We're going to provide that backlink in the show notes, as well as the links to her Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn accounts, and also the link to the book, Within My Spokes. As for us, you can find this episode on our website, outdooradventureseries.com, or also on LinkedIn and Facebook on our Outdoor Adventure Series pages. The video of this podcast will be up on YouTube. And of course, you can listen to this episode wherever you get your podcast from. Until next time, folks, go out there, have a phenomenal day, take care of yourselves and your family, and we look forward to having you join us on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.